Recently, I saw a webcomic by an artist who goes by the name of False Knees on Instagram. The comic is of two crows that are flying side by side, and one asks the other if they think they are best friends in every universe. The panels then separate to show the crows side by side across hundreds, if not thousands, of parallel universes. If you haven't seen it already, it's super cute, so be sure to go give the original artist some love. That said, this webcomic sparks an idea in my head for a game. And with Valentine's Day exactly 2 weeks away at the time of recording this video, I think there's no better time for me to get to work on it. The idea for this project is a local co-op game in which you and your friend or partner will need to work together to reconnect a bunch of random, cute little characters. I don't want to keep you here for too long though, so instead of yapping around about the idea, how about I just show you? So go grab some snacks, get cozy, and join me in the creation of my new game called Together in Every Universe. Whenever I start a new project, the first thing I like to do is brainstorm ideas. So I got to work on my iPad and started to draw out all the possible levels for this game. I want to make a minimum 5 levels, and depending on how long each of them take, I can increase the size of this project as I go. For local co-op games, there are certain limitations on what you can and can't do. For example, in Fireboy and Water Girl, probably the most famous local co-op game ever made, each player only has 4 keys, either W, A, S, and D, or the arrow keys. What this essentially means is that the levels can't be too complex, as introducing new keys will be confusing for the players. Regardless of that, I'll definitely try to make each level unique and as fun as possible. With all that said, it's probably about time I get into some actual programming. So armed with a couple of cleaned up sketches I've just made, let's open up Unity and get started. So I figured that while these time lapses are playing, rather than just boosting up the music, I'll try and explain each level. For this first level, you and your friend will need to carefully time when you press your buttons, as the aim is to get the two little meteors to collide in the middle for a hug. This level required a fair bit of maths to get working, which normally I would hate, but I actually didn't have a massively tough time with this. So maybe that shows development on my half, or maybe I just got lucky and by some miracle it worked first time. And for the second level, we have 2 rocks again. I know it's not very creative considering the last level was pretty much exactly the same, but I'll probably switch up the order in which the levels are played for the final game, since I'm only really programming these in the order I did the art. I think it's pretty obvious what the aim for this level is, but for anyone that hasn't guessed already, you basically need to roll your rock down the hill at the same time as your friend so that they collide in the middle. For level 3, I decided it was about time to move away from rocks. And what's further from rocks than paper? This level is about making sure a paper plane letter avoids clouds and birds that are flying towards it, and that it gets to the goal at the end of the level. To do this, one player will control the upward movement of the plane, while the other controls its downward movement. I actually scrapped the trees at some point in this project, so this level ends up looking a whole lot different from what you see here, but unfortunately, I don't have any footage to show for that. Moving on to level 4, I decided I wanted to create something completely new and different from what I was used to. In my head, this level was going to be an awesome rhythm/guitar hero game, and I quickly realised that it was way out of my comfort zone. For that reason, if any of you are looking at my code here and wondering what in the world is this guy doing, don't judge me, I got it working in the end, and it's actually become my favourite level so far. The code here uses a simple coroutine to spawn the blocks in at random intervals. Then, when the player clicks the key that represents the highest block, it will call a distance check function, and if the block and the key are within a certain distance of each other, then the duck will go forward, and if the player misses, then the duck will go back. Level 5 is up next, and while creating the art for this level, my iPad died midway. Luckily, my girlfriend was more than excited to finish it off for me, so while I was recording the footage you see here, she was working in the background to finish up the scene. The art you see in this clip ends up getting mostly replaced, and I'll put a little video up of the final level design now, just so you get a better idea of the level. Programming wise, unfortunately I was back to more maths. Creating the arc for the frogs movement was a pain, but weirdly enough actually super satisfying when I got it working. I also added a bit of a squash and stretch animation to the mushrooms, which I think gave it a really nice bouncy effect and brought the entire scene together. For level 6, the aim of the game is to help one little ant climb from the bottom of a tree to the top, in the hopes of finding their date. Their date just so happens to be an exact clone of them that's flipped on the y-axis, but we can ignore that for now. Leaves fall from the top of the tree, and colliding with them sends your ant tumbling down. The keen-eyed of you might actually notice that in this level, the ant doesn't move up at all, but instead the tree and all the other assets move down. There isn't really any real reason for this, besides meaning that I get to reduce the code just a tiny bit, but some of you might find that interesting. As I was moving on to level 7, I realised that I was running low on steam for all of the art. Obviously you guys haven't seen the quote-unquote behind the scenes for each of these levels, and while programming only takes around 20 to 30 minutes per level, the art takes twice that, if not even more. For that reason, this will probably be the final level I draw out, at least for this video. That said, I have absolutely fallen in love with this project. I think it's super cute and has loads of potential for future updates, so who knows what might happen in the future. But the video isn't over just yet. There's still tons of polish to be done, for instance sound design, music, and a menu system, and all the other things like that. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that this is my least favourite part of game dev, so strap in for a potentially awful ride. I'm going to do all of you a huge favour here and cut out the boring bulk of everything I did for polish. I'll just show you the basic scripts as well as an example of how each of those look in action. To start here, I whipped up a super simple scene transition script. I used async scene loading to make the swaps between scenes super seamless, as the scene will preload in the background of the level you're currently playing to reduce the potential stuttering of loading the scene all in one go. I then created a little input prompter script which allows the user to see which keys they'll be using in their current level. I also made it such that at the start of every level, the game will be paused until one of the player actually clicks one of their keys, meaning that they're ready to play. This just means that as you go between each level, you don't get thrown straight into the action, and also means I can add a little written tip to explain the current level to the player. For audio, I found a super awesome tool on itch.io called ChipTone, which allows you to generate random noises, which I use for the win and lose states of each level. If any of you are ever in need of some 8-bit audio clips, be sure to check this out, and I'll leave a link in the description below. With audio now sorted, here's a quick clip of the updated levels with all the scripts you just saw properly implemented. You can see here that when we first load into the game, there's a little tip at the bottom of the level to explain the aim. Above both the players, you will also see a sprite that represents the button you will be using throughout the current level. If I go ahead and mess up here and my meteors don't collide, then the level simply restarts, prompting you to try again. If you do manage to make the meteors collide, however, you can see that the screen faces black and then loads into the next scene. With each scene now connecting to the next and all of the polish now out of the way, I'm super excited to show off the final version of this project. I'm going to go ahead and call my girlfriend over and have her record a playthrough of the game with me. Thankfully, she has basically been my test subject throughout this entire project, so we shouldn't mess up too many times. With that said, I hope you enjoy. And that just about wraps everything up. Before this video comes to an end, I just want to say a huge thank you for 2,000 subscribers. I said this at 100 and then again at 1,000, but I really couldn't have done it without each and every one of you, in both the literal and metaphorical sense. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this little project. I'm super proud of how it came out, and I hope all of you enjoyed following along as much as I did making it. I will say that the art was by far the biggest challenge for me, but creating all these cute little characters definitely had a charm to it and made it all worth it. One last thing before we head off, and that is a huge thank you to Chris, who recently donated 10 coffees to me, which is the equivalent of £30. I hope you don't mind that I didn't actually buy 10 coffees and instead invested it in a new pop filter and stand for my microphone. I think it's really improved the audio quality for this video, and so once again, a massive thank you to you. You don't know just how much I appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.